When you envision a military, the images that likely come to mind are those of discipline, order, precision. Yet beneath the surface of stern commands and synchronized marches lies a world teeming with eccentricities. Militaries, despite their structured facade, have always been a breeding ground for unique traditions and practices that might raise an eyebrow or two. Today we're going to dive into this lesser-known aspect of the armed forces as we explore 5 of the most bizarre military traditions from around the world. If you have a look at this picture, what nation springs to mind? We're going to go out on a limb here and assume that it was probably Germany, and for good reason too, as there is arguably no greater symbol of Germany's past imperial glory days than the iconic, but long since abandoned, spiked pickelhaube helmet. What might prove shocking, however, is the fact that this picture is neither an old colorized still nor a group of dedicated reenactors. It is in fact a contemporary photograph of a modern military. Now, it's not actually the German army, so what nation do you think these soldiers are from? Well, if you guessed Chile, of all places, you probably didn't. Well done, you're right. And this answer then naturally raises another question. Why? Why did Chile, a nation 12,500 kilometers away from Germany, end up adopting the country's distinctive style for itself? The answer to that question goes all the way back to the 1879 to 1883 War of the Pacific. During this conflict, high-ranking Chilean officers such as Emilio Sotomayor and Patricio Lynch were acutely aware that their army suffered from a major flaw, namely that all in all it was just a bit To solve this problem, they sought significant reforms in strategic planning, officer training, and overall organization. This concern was also shared by President Santa Maria, who, in particular, was most concerned about the threat of imminent conflict with neighboring Argentina. Consequently, they all put their heads together and started thinking about how Chile could improve its military situation as rapidly as possible, and given the nation's rather poor military infrastructure and traditions at the time, the answer was obvious: get a little bit of help from the Europeans. Following this decision, the call went out to all of Chile's European ambassadors to start buttering up their local militaries and seeing what interest they could muster. One nation in particular, smelling potentially lucrative contracts, proved most willing to help: Germany. And the two nations began formally cooperating in 1881. Chile, for its part in this arrangement, would receive all the help a developing nation would possibly need, and Germany, for its part, would receive the one thing a burgeoning world power needed: lots and lots of cash. The relationship proved to be most cordial, with both countries strongly enjoying the bounties of their newfound friendship. A particularly pivotal moment in the partnership occurred in 1886 when Captain Emil Korner, an esteemed graduate of the military academy in Berlin, was appointed to lead the Chileans' training. Alongside him, 36 German officers were assigned to mold the latest intake officer cadets in the Chilean military academy. The subsequent years saw 3 significant phases of transformation and reorganization of the Chilean military, inspired largely by the Prussian model. It's also worth noting that Chile's emulation wasn't superficial. It sought a comprehensive adoption of German practices extending beyond mere aesthetics. Just before we continue in today's video, I do want to talk to you about the perfect blend of style and functionality from today's sponsor, Ridge. You see, at Ridge, they design gear that is built for life, and their latest creation is no exception, and that's the Ridge beveled ring set, which is perfect for anyone who wants a ring that can keep up with their active lifestyle. So what makes these rings stand out from the crowd? Well, first off, they come in a variety of premium materials, from carbon fiber to 24-karat gold. Plus, they've got an outer beveled edge for an on-hand comfort and an inner convex shape for a pinch-free, comfortable fit. But that's not all. They've also launched silicone rings that are available in multiple colors like matte, olive, raw black, alpine navy, gunmetal, and base camp orange. Just like the metal rings, they also come with a silicone band and a travel case. It's all about versatility, and Ridge also offers lost and resizing protection. Whether you lose a ring, shed a few pounds, or maybe gain a few, you can exchange your ring for the same style in a different size, not once, but twice. Plus, Ridge uses the same premium materials and designs from their signature wallet, so if you've got a Ridge wallet, why not complete the look with a matching Ridge ring? So if you want to upgrade your style game and add that finishing touch to your look, head over to Ridge using the link below, or go to ridge.com/sideprojects and get a fantastic 10% off with the promo code SIDEPROJECTS. Big shout out to Ridge for the sponsorship, and now back to today's video. There was a conscious effort to imbibe armaments, conscription methods, officer recruitment and instruction, military doctrine, and even general staff organization. Additionally, attention was given to military logistics, promotions, retirement, regulations, and of course, aesthetics, with marching styles, uniforms, helmets, parades, and military music all being changed to the German style. Of all the aesthetic changes Chile adopted, however, the 1904 pattern uniform particularly stands out, as this is when they adopted the striking pickelhaube helmet that we saw at the beginning of this section. Characterized by its pronounced spike, the helmet became an emblematic representation of not just the German army, but of the Chilean army as well. The color choice of Chilean uniforms also shifted, adopting the field grey reminiscent of German regiments. This new style stuck throughout the whole of the 20th century. Chile's choice to retain such traditional attire might seem eccentric in an era dominated by camouflage and tactical gear, but it's worth noting that at this point, the style is largely just reserved for dress uniforms, with the day-to-day gear of the Chilean army being completely modern and up-to-date. Think British soldiers looking fancy outside of Buckingham Palace, but wearing camouflage everywhere else. Then you get the idea. It also appears that the style is here to stay, as for the Chilean soldiers themselves, these uniforms serve as a daily reminder of their rich history and the transformative journey their predecessors embarked on. Plus, if we're being frank, they look pretty cool. In the chilly waters of the Arctic, Canada and Denmark, until recently, participated in one of the quirkiest military disputes ever recorded, the Whiskey War. What made this tradition unusual, however, was that it was a war fought with the clink of whiskey bottles and the fluttering of flags rather than gunfire, and all over Hans Island, a tiny island just 1.2 square kilometers that sits between Canada's Ellesmere Island and Denmark's autonomous territory, Greenland. On paper, this nondescript island wouldn't be expected to stir passions, yet it became the backdrop for almost half a century of light-hearted rivalry between the two peace-loving nations. The origin of this particular conflict dates back to 1933. The Permanent Court of International Justice, functioning under the League of Nations, declared Hans Island to be Denmark's territory. However, as the League lost its global influence and relevance, its rulings became similarly inconsequential. For a while, this legal uncertainty was fine. Both Canada and Denmark were a tad busy with a little thing called World War II, so neither country was particularly bothered about paying the island any heed. After the war, however, the matter of boundaries between the two nations once again came to the fore. In 1973, both nations sat down and very cordially clarified the borders between Ellesmere Island and Greenland, but they overlooked one small thing: Hans Island, which fell within the international radius for both Canada and Denmark, thereby setting the stage for the Whiskey War. The war's name might evoke images of naval blockades or military standoffs, but as we already know, the war was a largely tongue-in-cheek affair marked by a series of friendly provocations. Hans Island was, after all, a strategically meaningless and resourceless lump of rock in the middle of nowhere, which neither country actually cared about. The war formally began in 1984 when Canada, in a bold assertion of sovereignty, landed troops on Hans Island. They hoisted the maple leaf flag, buried a bottle of Canadian whiskey, and returned home, momentarily expanding their nation's territory by almost a square mile. Not to be outdone, Denmark's Minister of Greenland Affairs embarked on a similar expedition. On reaching the island, he replaced the Canadian flag with a Danish one, planted a bottle of Copenhagen's best schnapps, and left a cheeky note that read, "Oh, welcome to Danish Island." This kept on happening, and over the years, the hoisting of one's flag and burying of booze became a well-established, if peculiar military tradition between the two countries. Dozens of expeditions by both sides would find their way to the rock, each marking their visit with tattered flags and generously left behind bottles. Visitors would describe the scene as a sea of flags and notes, a testament to this long-standing ritual. By 2018, however, half a century after the first whiskey bottle was placed, both nations felt that they needed to bring a formal end to this tradition. A joint working group was established, tasked with charting a peaceful resolution. After extensive deliberation in June 2022, a deal was struck. The island was to be divided, with each nation receiving a share, marking the world's longest maritime border at 3,882 kilometers. In hindsight, the Whiskey War stands out not as a confrontation, but as a testament to the idiosyncrasies of international diplomacy. It's a heartening reminder that conflicts don't always need to be resolved on the battlefield. Sometimes a bottle of whiskey, a fluttering flag, and a sense of humor is all that's required, at least when nothing meaningful is at stake. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, right now I'd like to introduce you to Sir Niels Olav III, Major General of the Norwegian Army. And no, it's not the guy holding the sword, it's the little fella stood in front of him, the penguin. And this isn't a joke, Sir Olav is actually a fully commissioned Major General in the Norwegian Army. And now allow me to explain that. It may shock you to discover that Sir Olaf doesn't actually carry out any duties for the military, and in fact, his role is purely ceremonial. It's shocking, we know. His commission is a tradition that dates all the way back to the 1961 Edinburgh Military Tattoo, a grandiose showcase of military might and culture. As the Norwegian King's Guard executed their drill display at the event, one lieutenant, Niels Egeland's curiosity, led him to the zoo's penguin colony, an innocent fascination that culminated in the Norwegian King's Guard adopting a penguin during their subsequent visit in 1972. The penguin was affectionately nicknamed Nils Olav, a tribute to Lieutenant Egeland and Olav Sigurd, the contingent commander of the Guard at the time. But here's where the tale takes a bit of a delightful twist. Nils Olav actually had quite the glittering career after he was conscripted into the Norwegian Army. He started out as a lowly lance corporal before going on to display conduct so becoming of the uniform that he typically found himself promoted every time the King's Guard graced Edinburgh Zoo. Sadly, however, the original Nils Olav passed away in 1987, and so his rank and awards were bestowed upon another penguin, Niels Olav II, to carry on his legacy. He stayed at his post until 2008, when he left the mortal plane to join his forerunner in penguin heaven. Following this, the mantle was passed to another, and this subsequent Niels Olav III is still going strong to this day. Rather hilariously, the rank passing from penguin to penguin and is typically being promoted with every visit has led to the situation getting a bit out of hand, hence Niels Olav III currently being a major general and technically speaking one of the most senior officers in the Norwegian army. If you recall, at the start of this section, we also referred to Niels Olav III as a Sir, making him a Knight of the Realm and technically minor nobility, but knighthoods aren't handed out by the military, so how did that happen? The answer to that question lies in 2008, when he was approved for a knighthood by none other than King Harold V himself, with the King's Commendation recognizing Niels as being, quote, in every way qualified to receive the honor and dignity of knighthood. So by this point, you're probably wondering, why would a stern military institution engage in such a playful tradition? Well, it's a heartening mix of camaraderie, humor, and a dash of the unexpected. It exemplifies the spirit of the Norwegian King's Guard, serious professionals who aren't above light-hearted diversion, forging one of the most enchanting military traditions known to man. Plus, after all, soldiers are human under the uniform, and they think a commissioned penguin is just kind of fun. In a world where military disciplines often involve rigid routines and stern expressions, it's refreshing to uncover customs that border on the bizarre. One such tradition, whose origins stretch back over 4 centuries, is the crossing the line ceremony of the Royal Navy. It's a curious mix of ancient lore, good-humoured jesting, and rites of passage, a practice as deeply entrenched in naval history as it is endearingly weird. Imagine this. A massive warship cutting through the vastness of the ocean halts its regular proceedings as it approaches the equator. The reason? To pay its respects to none other than King Neptune, the mythical Lord of the Seas. While the notion might sound like a plot from a fantasy novel, it's a centuries-old ritual that every sailor in the Royal Navy anticipates with a blend of excitement and trepidation. At the heart of the ceremony lies the objective to test sailors, especially the ones who've never crossed the equator before. Dubbed as polywogs, these sailors are made to undergo challenges to ensure that they are robust enough to handle the rough seas. The tasks vary, but traditionally involve quirky activities, being dabbed with paint, munching on a rather unpalatable snack, or even being dunked in water. It's all good fun, yet there's a symbolic undertone to these acts, reinforcing the sailors' commitment to the sea and their shipmates. Yet what makes the tradition especially surreal is the court convened by King Neptune himself. The court isn't a solemn affair, rather it's an occasion steeped in tradition, set rituals, and of course grandiose speeches. King Neptune, usually impersonated by a senior sailor adorned in elaborate costumes, presides over the proceedings with his consort, Amphitrite, and his notorious assistant Davy Jones. Together they decide the fate of the polywogs. For first-timers, the ceremony might be daunting, but there's a twist. It's all enacted in a light-hearted theatrical fashion. Members of the crew who have not crossed the line are humorously charged for their crimes, which could be as silly as not swabbing the deck properly or singing off tune. These mock crimes are then punished in comically exaggerated ways, ensuring bouts of laughter echo through the ship's decks. But what's the deeper purpose behind such eccentricities? Beyond the jest, the crossing the line ceremony serves a crucial function. For sailors, often away from their families and facing the unpredictable temperament of the seas, such traditions are a momentary respite. The ceremony fosters camaraderie, strengthening the bonds among crew members and instilling a sense of belonging. It's a quirky, yet profound reminder that in the vast, often lonely stretches of the ocean, a sailor's never truly alone. In the vast landscape of international borders, none hosts a daily spectacle quite as unique and paradoxical as the Attari Wakar border between India and Pakistan. This choreographed dance of military precision, described as both a symbol of rivalry and a testament to cooperation, stands out as one of the most bizarre military traditions in the world. Set against the backdrop of the Grand Trunk Roads, the Atari-Waghar border holds a special place in the hearts of both Indians and Pakistanis. Before the establishment of the Aman Setu in Kashmir in 1999, this border was the solitary road link between the two nations. However, beyond its geographical significance, every evening this location transforms into a theatre of vibrant military display. The sun might be inching closer to the horizon at this time, but on the border, the atmosphere is electrifying. Soldiers from both India's Border Security Force and Pakistan's Rangers take center stage, showcasing a blend of elaborate dance-like maneuvers. These aren't delicate ballet steps, but power-packed, high-legged kicks characterized as colorful. For an onlooker, this might appear more like a highly competitive and synchronized dance-off than a traditional military display. Yet the tradition runs deep. Since 1959, the daily lowering of the flag ceremony has become more ritualistic. Each motion, each shout, each stare carries decades of history, rivalry, and a shared heritage. The heart of the ceremony is marked by the perfectly coordinated lowering of the two nations' flags. It's a sight to behold, with an infantryman from each side standing rigidly at attention. As the last rays of the sun cast long shadows, the iron gates swing open and the flags descend in perfect sync. Thousands gather daily to witness this spectacle. While the majority hail from both sides of the border, the event has also garnered attention from international tourists. The ceremony's resilience was tested during the heightened India-Pakistan military tensions in 2016. While the performance continued unabated, certain elements, like the customary exchange of sweets during festivals and national days, was paused. Such instances underscore the ceremony's dual nature, a symbol of rivalry and unity. However, the border isn't unique in its display. Other border posts like Ganda Singh, Wala, Husanwala, and Sulamanki Sadaki borders host similar ceremonies. Though they might not match Atari-Waghar in scale, they imbue the same spirit. Soldiers intimidate each other with high kicks and intense stares, eventually culminating in a synchronized flag lowering or beating retreat. In a world of evolving military traditions, the Atari-Waghar border ceremony stands out. It's a testament to the power of ritual, the complexities of regional politics, and a sheer will to maintain a tradition against all odds. To label it merely as weird would be an oversimplification. It's an intricate dance of rivalry and brotherhood, playing out daily on the world stage.